Pumping up your tyres at home is quite probably one of the easiest maintenance tasks you'll ever do. However, out on the road, if you suffer a puncture, it could be a whole other story, especially if you're using a super old mini pump. So coming up is a quick buyer's guide to what to do when you want to buy a new pump and why there's different types out there. Pumps come in loads of different shapes, styles, colours and types. So I'm going to run you through a few common examples and why they're all different to each other. And then as a little bonus, I'll also explain some of the differences between track pumps. While it might seem obvious to many people why you would have a mini pump to take out on your bike instead of a track pump, well, it's quite simply just because look at the size of this. You would not want to be carrying that around out on the bike with you. First up, we've got this, which is a frame pump. Quite a traditional type of pump, many people will be familiar with it. And it's the largest pump we've got here today that you would take out on the bike with you. Now, as the name suggests, it's designed to clip underneath the top tube of your frame. It doesn't need a mount or anything specific, it's got carefully shaped ends to mimic the profile of some of the tubes of your frame, and then it's sprung loaded. So you quite simply compress it like that, put it into your top tube and the spring will hold that in place. The advantage of a pump of this type is obviously its physical size. So you're going to be able to pump your tyre up with much less effort and in a quicker time than what you would with a slightly smaller type of pump. But the downside, obviously, you can't put this in your pocket. So if you're someone that doesn't want to have a pump attached to their bike, this is maybe not the type of pump for you. A pump like this is a fairly simple design, so it's going to last you a long time with minimal parts that could go wrong. It quite simply presses onto your valve with the head here, suitable for Presta or Schrader valves. Then you flick your lever down and then pump away. It's also got a little lever down here to lock the handle out so you don't have to deal with that springy motion as you're trying to pump your tyres up nice and hard. Simple. Next up, we've got this. I guess it's kind of a sort of medium pump, so it fits in between the different options that we've got here today. And it's kind of designed as a pump to sort of mimic what we get with our track pump here. It's like a scaled down version. So we've got a little piece underneath here which folds out and it can be used as a footrest. You then have the pump head here on a flexible hose so that you can position it wherever the valve is, and also there's going to be less stress going onto the valve. And then our handle pulls out and folds out to a T. So this effectively can then be used as a smaller track pump. It all clips in and twists in together nicely. And then in addition to this flexible hose we've got a little inline built-in pressure gauge here, particularly handy when you want to get your tyre pressure set just right when you're out on your road. You don't really want to be guessing what your tyre pressures are. I know sometimes the idea is just to get home, but you still want to have your bike set up nice and safe how you like it. So this is maybe a good option for that. It includes a mount to add it onto your bike, keep it tucked away, and it uses the bottle cage bosses for that. Although it's maybe a little bit big to go in your pocket, but if you really wanted to, you could fit it in. In terms of the volume you've got with this pump, so how quickly you pump your tyres up, you've still got a good barrel size on the pump, so it's going to be nice and efficient. Maybe not quite as quick as the larger frame pump, but still going to be perfectly adequate to give you an easy pumped up tyre out on the road. And on to our smallest pump that I've got in front of me today. So this is a perfect size to not only put on your bike, like we've got on the mount here, but also small enough that it fits nicely into your jersey pocket. For example, in the summer, you just want to carry minimal spares and equipment. This will go in nicely with an inner tube. So doubles in size as you're going to pump. And it's actually got a twin turbo action. That's what this is called. So it pumps on this stroke and on that stroke as well. So effectively, you're doubling the volume of this pump so that you can pump your tyres up in a similar speed to a larger pump like this. When you open it up, you can see they're a fairly comparable size. So there we go, it's a stripped down pump designed to be lightweight, simple and compact. But as so, you don't have some of the advantages of the features on the larger pump. So we've got no pressure gauge on here, we've got no flexible hose to reduce the risk of damaging our valve as we're pumping it up. So it's just a bit of a trade-off really. You've got lightweight, or a little bit heavier, and you've got some additional features. And then we've got our largest and heaviest frame pump, which makes pumping up your tyres as easy as it could possibly be. There are still a few other options to consider, which we'll have a look at next. If you don't want to carry an actual physical pump like this, and you've got tubeless tyres, for example, you could use a nice little unit like this, which is a CO2 canister, which also has some tubeless plugs combined in a nice little pouch, which you could sit behind your seat post, for example, or mount onto your frame and position it out of the way, and it's kind of sleek, fairly minimalist design. So inside here, we've got a CO2 cartridge, and then we've also got the unit which goes with the canister itself. So CO2 cartridges come in a couple of different sizes. This one's a 25, which is the larger, ideal for mountain bike tyres or a big volume gravel bike tyre. You could potentially get 2 road bike tyres pumped up from one of these. And the other option is a 16-gram cartridge, which is a bit smaller than this and only really suitable for 1 road bike tyre. So inside this little unit here, we've got our first part are the little tyre plugs or grommets. So these are what are inserted into the puncture site on your tyre. You may well be familiar with these. You use this little tool, poke one through, insert it into the puncture site of your tyre, pull it back out, and this will plug up that hole, try and make it airtight again. Once you've got that in place, the next stage is to remove the other section from here. This is effectively the valve which is going to control the airflow from our canister into our tyre. So our canister will thread onto the end here. Do it up like that. You then do it up nice and tight to pierce the end of the canister. I'm obviously not going to do that now, be a little bit wasteful. And then you put that onto your tyre and then press this little button here to control the airflow from the canister to inflate your tyre. Then you can simply thread it, unthread it off, and then put this piece back together, and then you're ready to mount that back onto your bike and continue with your ride. Now the benefit of using a CO2 canister is that it's a lot quicker and easier than sitting there trying to pump your tyre up with an actual pump, for example. But the downside is, once you've used this once, it's gonna be empty and you're gonna not have any other way of pumping up your tyre. So you need to carry multiples of them or be prepared to call up a taxi or walk home if you run out. So just in the same way as our pumps come in a number of different styles, sizes, colours and designs, our CO2 canisters also come in some different options. So this is effectively a scaled down, smaller version of this. Sure, it hasn't actually got the CO2 canister installed on it, but this point here is where your CO2 canister would go. You've got a little pump adapter here, which is sprung loaded, and then we've got a smaller version of our plug and patch kit that's in here. So you just use the same equipment. This will pull off at the end to expose the tool to insert them, and then in the other end you've just got 1 or 2 of those little tyre plugs, whereas in this instance you've got more of those available to use to get you out of trouble more often. But what happens when you need to pump your road bike tyres up or your gravel bike tyres and you're at home? You certainly don't want to be trying to pump them up with a small pump like this, because you don't need to struggle, and that is where the track pump comes into it. So I've got a couple of different examples here that represent sort of the latest technology to try and make pumping up your tyres quite literally a breeze. This one has got an innovative head design, which in fact enables you to take the valve core out of your tubeless tyres, for example, without having to take the pump head off. That's why it's sort of clear, and you've got this part here which moves. So that's quite a cool new piece of technology. And also, many pumps have what's called a 2-stage design. So that's this little lever here, which effectively means it's got 2 different barrels. So you've got a high volume and low pressure setting, designed to get as much air as possible into your tyres in the shortest time possible. And then once you've reached sort of 30 PSI or so, and you want to switch to cross, getting the pressure as high as possible, so suitable for your road bike, you can then switch the pump to its other setting, which is a lower volume but a higher pressure setting. And this sort of pump is particularly useful if you've got gravel bike with tubeless tyres, maybe you've got a road bike as well, and maybe a mountain bike, because you've got one pump which you can tune and adjust to make pumping up all of the different types as easy as possible. Now, talking about tubeless tyres, a good pump to have is what's called a canister or a charger pump. It's a bit of a bigger one, this. This is certainly why you wouldn't want to take out on the bike with you. So the idea here is we've got this part, the lower section, which is similar to a normal pump, many of us are familiar with. Then we've got this canister on the top. So effectively, we've got a valve on the top here, which allows us to pressurize this canister and then flick the lever across, and as much air as we've charged into the pump will very, very quickly go straight into your tubeless tyre and inflate it and pop it onto the bead as quick as possible. It's quite a cool design, this, and one that I wish was around maybe like 15 years ago when I first tried using tubeless tyres. And there are loads and loads of different options and styles. Some have got different heads on them. Most are compatible with Schrader and Presta valves. There's ones with different gauges, different scales. There's loads to choose from, but some of the key points to take away for choosing a mini pump or a pump that you can take out on the bike and your track pump, so that's one in this sort of design, is to look for a sign of quality. So a pressure gauge on your track pump is going to be crucial. You need to make sure it's a nice clear display, goes to the pressures that are going to be suitable for your bike, and it's easy to read. In terms of the construction, mostly metal construction is going to be great for longevity. You know, a pump is going to be an investment and you want it to last for a good time. And then you need to choose a pump suitable for the type of riding and the type of bike you have. There's just no point picking a low pressure, high volume mountain bike pump if you're only going to use it to pump up the tyres on your road bike. So there you have it, my tips on how to choose a pump. Hope you found that helpful. And if you have any tips of your own or what type of pump you like best, let us know in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up.